Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. We are going to be talking about building a better practice with clarity, control, and confidence, specifically for accountants, and looking a little bit deeper into how people approach the management of their firms. So I am Greg Bithrey, Head of Customer Success for Approval Max. And joining me today, who will be talking about this topic in depth, is Peter Magner. Peter, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, Greg, should we give it a couple of minutes before everyone jumps in? I can see you've got already 9 people. How's it, everyone? I know if they're from Cape Town, they're probably starting late. And so I think maybe let's give them one or 2 minutes, and then we can kickstart things. But in the meantime, yeah, thanks, Greg, for having me. I'm from a firm called Iridium, and we've been around for 12 years. So, guys, if you have questions, please add them into the comments. We want to make this as practical as possible, and we want to make sure we're getting to the nuts and bolts of what the current challenges you are finding, not just the things that I've picked up over the last 12 years. So yeah, feel free to use the chats liberally.
Great.
And yeah, Greg, I'm happy to do a proper kind of round of introductions. And now I know we've given a little bit of time. Should we start then?
Great stuff. Handing over to you, Peter. Intro.
Yep. So guys, as I said, I'm from a company called Iridium. It's my brother and I that essentially run Iridium. We started 12 years ago when there was not very many people using cloud-based tools, especially in the accounting space. And we picked up Xero and found that it was a great tool and built our business around that for the last 12 years. So I am an accountant. I'm a chartered accountant. I did my articles at EY, and I'm a proud Cape Townian boy. And yeah, love technology. I am our sales and marketing director because I also just love utilizing sales and marketing to grow a business. And so a lot of what we've done is create a brand that's a little bit more exciting and fun in the industry. And that's helped us do what we do best. Yeah, Greg, on to you.
Thank you, Peter. So today's webinar, we are talking about building a better practice, and that's whether you're building a new firm or starting from scratch, and also talking about modernizing what has been around for years. Accounting practices have changed significantly over the last 2-3 decades, and this session is about taking a breath and zooming out and reimagining a firm that works for you. Now, before we dive in, we want to look at 3 key things today. So looking at taking a step back, as I mentioned, and looking at your firm and assessing your firm with fresh eyes. What is working for you, what's not working for you, and where to focus next. We'll also be talking about how successful firms define, package, and deliver services, as well as delve a little bit deeper into real strategies to reduce scope creep and scale sustainably. Mostly to focus on getting back time for you and your team and get that control in place. So by the end of today's webinar, we'd like you to leave with insights on how to scale easier and what could make scaling harder, as well as tips and tricks in terms of what your approach should be with tech that can actually help you grow and not just add noise. And then lastly, we'll also be sending out a simple checklist with the recording just to help you with starting points to look at how to assess your firm and to evolve for the future. Okay, so first off, we're going to be starting off with a poll, and we'd like to know from you, what is the one thing you'd like to learn more about when it comes to growing your firm? The poll will be launched in your screens now. And this is to inform us of the direction that we're going to be taking today. So we have a set agenda, but happy to pivot based on what the needs of the audience are. So urge you to start with that poll. Okay, Peter, so just to start off, talking about the reality of today's market, what are your thoughts of the state of South African small business?
Yeah, so how I look at it is, yeah, I've kind of looked over the last 4 or 5 years of our kind of sales trends, and I'm technically in charge of sales, and also actually do all our sales calls. So my experience for that question is kind of based on what I've seen in engaging with small business owners and business owners around their business, and the likelihood that they actually sign up. And I like stats. So I've tracked all our sales across the last 5 years, and kind of monthly new clients. And I've kind of seen over the last year there seems to be a bit of a dip
Okay.
in kind of eagerness to switch. And when I chat to tech providers and business owners, it seems like, and accounting firm owners, it seems like there has been a bit of a pinch. Yeah, clients are less willing to sign up quickly, and that kind of lends me to think that people are a little bit more uncertain about the future. And I think it's partly because of our favorite politician in America causing chaos, and yeah, that causing a little bit of chaos. So just general economy not being as happy as it should, and business owners are not always logical. They make decisions based on emotion. So I think when somebody's feeling uncertain and about kind of life, about business, they tend to be slow to make decisions. So I think it's not necessarily 100% true that the economy is fully just flatlined and going downhill. I think a lot of it is perception and kind of the feeling that business owners have. So based on that, I've definitely seen people a lot slower, a lot more price sensitive, and unwilling to kind of switch.
Okay. I mean, just with the VAT announcement and the impending changes and all the prep involved, I think many people would be even more hesitant to switch with that deadline coming up, which also did a 180, which was a little bit interesting, especially since I know how much prep went into that upcoming change for a lot of firms. So
Yeah. Can we jump briefly onto the poll?
yes, I just received the poll results. So in terms of what people would like to hear more about today, the number one is using tech better at 33%, and followed 25% delegation and systems and pricing strategy. And the two remaining are mindset and confidence and client onboarding at 8%.
So guys, just on that, the interesting thing for me personally that comes out of this is most of you aren't too interested in onboarding clients in terms of your approach to onboarding clients, and you clearly want clients, you want things to run better, but are not necessarily concerned about your onboarding process. And I think, like for me, I've spent a hell of a lot of time over the last few years fine-tuning our client onboarding process. And as a result of that, had clients actually refer us to other clients who've signed up, and we've only just had them for a week or two, but they appreciated the onboarding experience so much that they reached out and referred other people to us. So yeah, my one observation would be that onboarding experience is actually quite important. And we can dive into it a little bit more later, but I think it would be interesting to understand why most of you don't think that that's important, and perhaps you think your onboarding is amazing. And it'd be interesting to do a bit of a deep dive on what you do as in your onboarding process to see if you could do things differently and better. So yeah, Greg, let's carry on.
Right. Yeah, just on that, I would think there might be a direct correlation between a successful onboarding or a slick onboarding when it comes to pricing as well as tech deployment. Has that been your finding?
It has. I tend to find, so we try and price higher than most in the market. I hope. I'd love to get everyone's prices later. Let me know. But we tend to find that we have priced ourselves quite high in the market, and we position ourselves as more of a premium offering. And with that, if you're going to if you're going to a nice spa, you want some champagne, you want some free food, you want to be kind of looked after and feel like you're getting the premium service. And I think if you offer a premium service and you show people that it actually is a premium service through how you interact with them, that it reassures their decision. Like I said earlier, it's that perception, that feeling that somebody gets that's more important than actually necessarily the nuts and bolts of the line items on a invoice. People buy based on emotions rather than logic. So yeah, creating a nice experience means that they're more likely to buy more, or more likely to feel comfortable that they made the right decision.
That's a fantastic insight. Thank you, Peter. So moving on to our next poll, and this is directly linked to the challenges into today's market, which we've identified through engagement with various partners and customers. So I'm going to give you a minute to fill out the poll. And Peter, just while we launching the poll, in terms of the biggest current pain points that you've observed among your customers and other firms that you've engaged with, what are the trends there?
Yeah, I think every accounting firm will say talent is hard to find, and holding on to talent is hard, and people management is hard. And I'd love to meet an accounting firm owner or a manager that disagrees with that. We're a team of 65 people, and we found that people are the greatest asset, and it sounds cliched. They really are the greatest asset, but they are also the biggest frustration for myself and Simon, and that's something that we spend a lot of time trying to understand and trying to change how we approach things. We've brought in lots of third-party consultants, and we've done psychometric tests and personality tests and team sessions, and we've brought in quite a lot of different people around it. And I think it's a challenging space.
Okay.
So I'm glad a few of you agree. It looks like managing scope is right up there, and I think in the previous poll, mindset was not one of the highest, but it kind of looks like across the board for this poll there's challenges in scaling and leads and talent and scope, but scope seems like one of the big ones, which is great. Not great, but great. I think briefly diving into that, maybe a question back to the audience, because I like asking questions. Feel free to drop in comments. Do you have a formal proposal tool that you're using to define scope, and how are you taking that scope and translating it down into the team? And then, yeah, how often are you checking in that that scope is being correctly managed? Because I think you can have a great proposal that defines things really well according to your mind. Then the client gets onboarded. They think that it means something different to what the proposal said, and there's a break there. And then it gets deployed down to the team, and they don't quite understand the scope. So they go over and above because they need to add value. You told them they need to add value. And so they're adding more than the scope, but they think they're just doing a good job at managing the clients. And no one's actually checking in on what they're doing specifically. At a high level, how are you doing? What's going on? Yes, but what are they actually doing with our clients? Have they got meetings every week that they've suddenly scheduled because the client is annoying? So what are the actual things? What's taking their time with the clients? I think that's often a challenge. And was having a good feedback loop to understanding what a team are doing versus what the actual scope was, and having people that are confident enough to say no. And I think often as accountants, we're normally more analytical, introverted in nature. And even if we're a business owner and we're confident, we're hiring people that are introverted and don't have a lot of confidence, and can't say no very easily. So that's hard. When somebody asks you to do something, most of the time, the team are saying yes and not no, because no is hard and I want to please the client. So I think there's a lot of training that's required to get the team to understand what the scope is, and also to feel comfortable to say no, or actually just to say, I'll get back to you, and then go to somebody that's willing to say no.
Oh, so they can go to you and you can say no.
Hell yeah.
So
I've
maybe
learned to say no often.
so maybe part of the skills training is specifically focusing on boundaries and confidence, not just technical training, but also the self-awareness side of things when engaging with clients.
Yeah, like silly thing to do that's actually a great thing to do is I love the concept of DISC assessments. And
Okay.
if you don't know what those are, it's kind of 4 quadrants. You've got yellow, red, blue, and green, and each of them have different personality types in those quadrants. And on the one side it's extroverts, on the other side it's introverts, and then you've got kind of those drivers, which are your reds, and the life of the parties, which are the yellows, and the analyzers, which are the blues, and the team players, amiables, which are the greens. And actually just understanding where your team fit into those blocks.
Okay.
And it's not about literally blocking them in. They are this, but
Yeah.
it's each person kind of trends more towards one of those colors being almost a dominant color in their personality. And it sounds wishy-washy, but it actually is great, because you get to understand the team, and you get to understand, oh, they're not pushovers, they're just slow to act because they're an analyzer. And analyzers are probably going to rather not make decisions quickly. They're probably going to find it hard to say no to somebody. Whereas somebody who's like a red, they'll make a decision quickly, confidently, and they could be 100% wrong, because they haven't analyzed the situation whatsoever, but they are confident.
Yeah.
And so I think understanding that balance between your team and their personalities allows you to better understand how they're going to interact with clients and with each other.
Fantastic. And I think also for their own growth, understanding themselves better, because people don't always understand themselves in terms of that spectrum.
Yeah.
So talking about defining and packaging services, what is the biggest mistake you see firms making when defining their services?
Yeah, I think it's not defining their services. So uh, yeah, I've worked with a couple of accounting firms and engaged with a lot of accounting firms, and a lot of the time they just want to get a client over the line, so they are willing to take on a lot of stuff and have an email and just say, sure, we'll take you on because the client, has lots of challenges and their previous accountant let them down. So uh, they're quick to onboard a client without properly defining what their offering is and what their offering is not. And I think the best thing that we did a few years ago was clearly define the list of services, and within that list of services, what is on us that we are willing to do. A good example would be, one of our key services that we always offer is bookkeeping.
Yes.
Part of that, I say, we are not your debtor's clerk, so we will not raise sales invoices and we will not chase debtors. That is not our responsibility. It will never be our responsibility. And we are not going to manage your email inbox for accounts because it doesn't work in our business. It's not a scalable approach. So I think for me, by defining clearly what you are in each of your services allows you to then clearly explain that to your team. And that allows you to scale better. And with that, it's also about having a standard set of services, not trying to customize per client too much.
So this is where we start talking about how do you move from a reactive space to well-defined packages. Um, did you experience this earlier in the journey of Iridium where you didn't have this in place and you had to embark on that journey?
Yeah, 100%. So when Simon and I started Iridium, we just needed clients. We needed money to pay our bills, to be honest. And so we were willing to take on anything. And I think by doing that, it's okay in the beginning to almost say, I need a few things in the door just so I can cover the groceries, cover my rent, cover what I need. But I think there's a point where you need to draw a line and say, I've got 5 or 10 clients. Okay, I've tried a few things. I know what I want to offer, and then solidify kind of what your service list is,
Yes.
and within that list, what your responsibility is. And if you're able to do that, well, then your team is able to understand every single time a client comes on board, they don't have to reinvent the wheel of how are we dealing with this client. Are we taking on their email inbox? Are we using Dexter? Are we using HubDoc? Are we using Sage or Zero? What systems are we using, and what's the scope? Because the scope is pretty standard every single time. Somebody might add or remove a service, but if they add a service, well, it's the same service as all the other people that have that service.
Okay. So when you do look at adding services, it's something that you test in isolation and see the results. So you're not afraid to test things, but quite clear about what is standard practice and what is the framework of the services that you provide.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Like we can be cowboys at times. If there is an opportunity, I want to test out price points, test out if people are willing to take on a new service. So, for example, payroll payments, isolating out and say, would somebody be willing to pay us to load their payroll?
No.
It wasn't a service that we advertised at first, but we had a few people ask, and I said, cool, well, what about R1,000? What about 750? You test the waters, see what people are willing to pay, and then figure out the best approach for how to standardize that and how to scale that. At first, it might be very manual, and then we like to find a tool that can help automate the process.
So we just had our first question come in, and it's asking, that person's asking, how do we increase prices without upsetting existing clients? I think this is something that a lot of people have struggled with, and it's not just accounting firms. It is a tough one.
It is. Put it this way, one thing that I would suggest, you have to increase pricing every single year. That's a non-negotiable. So, yeah, I know one accounting firm hadn't increased their price when I spoke to them for 3 years.
Wow.
And then it became a fear for them that, they haven't quite delivered what they should have delivered, and they were worried that if they increase, they're going to lose a client. And I think people need to feel comfortable that pricing is going to increase, because it always increases in most of our lives. And so getting your customers comfortable that there is a rhythm of increasing is important. We do it twice a year. So we do our pricing increases in January and June. And the logic was some of our clients came on board, say April, May. So we just pushed them to the June price increase, and the rest we increase in kind of January. And my approach to that is I do quite a lot of homework. So for some clients, it's an inflationary increase. For some clients, I'll push the boundaries and say, 30, 40, 50, 100% increase based on using information in their accounting, using how's the volume changed? Have they added another 1 or 2 retail stores if they're a retailer? So gathering as much data, which we're really good at doing, gathering data, painting a picture, and then I craft an email to explain why the increase is happening and what are all the factors that have gone into me making that decision. And part of it's, Greg, well done on how well Approval Max has done over last year. You guys have gone from 5 million to 10 million. You've added 3 additional people into the team. There's been great all-round growth. Looking at your kind of bank volumes, you've gone from 300 bank lines to 450. There's just growth everywhere. It's really exciting. And as part of that, we've been working with you for the last year, and we're looking to increase your fee by additional 5,000 Rand from 10 to 15 or whatever it is. Really appreciate all that you've done, and looking forward to working with you over the next year as you continue to grow. So it's kind of like that like sandwich effect of like, you did a great job. Here's a bit of pill, and let's keep going. And I normally attach some of the supporting kind of information. I use a tool called kind of Dext, and it has a health check, and it gives you some great activity insights of kind of volumes of transactions. And I normally pull that out, dump it to them, and basically craft my story so that they're more inclined to accept. And by spending a little bit more time on the price increase logic for certain clients, I've been able to get more than 100% increase literally in the last kind of adjustment that we did in January. One person doubled their fee quite comfortably. I was quite surprised. I thought they were going to exit, and they were more than happy, because they said, my team's been doing a great job. They appreciate all the hard work. They realize that they have increased in effort, and thanks. And there was no fight whatsoever. So I think it really is about how you communicate. And then it's, if you're delivering value throughout the year, well, they're more likely to say yes to an increase. If they're not happy with you throughout the year, you're not going to get that price increase. So
I think you're going to struggle.
you're going to
And
struggle.
I also think in terms of delivering well-crafted, individualized communications in terms of these price increases, you get a lot less pushback, which means you're not investing time in trying to get a relationship back on track because then, you've just sent out a blanket email, 10% for everyone. And you spend more time actually fielding the pushback than you would have properly crafting and delivering a strategic price increase in the beginning.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, like building good relationships with your clients is what kind of makes a difference. And if you're going to just kick out a mail and you haven't spoken to them a year, you're probably going to get a negative result.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's actually building touch points along the way that make them feel like they're special. And with that, some of the increases, I'm calling somebody. I'll send an email and I'll call them straight away and say, hey, just sent you a mail. Yeah, it's been a while. How are you doing? And continue to try and build that relationship. Because that's when people are more likely to accept those increases. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an indication of kind of increasing pricing of clients when they're kind of part of your organization. The other kind of question is almost increasing existing pricing that you have for new clients coming in, which is actually easier. We raise our general base fee every year. So in my head, I have a base fee, and every year I increase that, so that any client that comes on board, I'm starting there and I'm going above because our base fees increase. We've got more costs. So
that's ever changing. And just to get specific on pricing, we have a question from Melanie about pricing on compilations and independent reviews. How do you approach that?
yeah, sure. So I didn't see that question, but we don't do independent reviews.
Okay.
We totally appreciate that many of you might. I hate audits and reviews. So and part of the reason is because there's a bit of risk involved, and those that do it, I appreciate you. I think it's a service that most people don't value, to be honest. So most people, when it comes to independent reviews, they just want it done cheap. So it's a tricky one. You kind of can't price it too high. It's not an offering where somebody's seeing value unless you are able to show how you're adding value through your review. And I think when I was at EY back in the day, the value that my clients got was in the kind of the management recommendation letter. So the things that came out that I was able to communicate to an owner. And I think when I've looked at most independent reviewers, they just want to get through the thing to get it signed off. And I think if you look at it from the client's perspective, most independent reviews are done because of the ownership structure potentially, or maybe a shareholder said they needed to. So it's a grudge purchase. If you're able to find a way to add value into that service outside of just delivering the service, then I think you're able to charge more for it. And I think that's, if you're able to communicate that up front, that's part of our process is we look at your processes, we understand your systems, we provide you great recommendations of how to change things in your business to be better off going forward, then people are more likely to appreciate a better fee. And I know there's kind of a balancing act of kind of what can you do from an advice perspective and what can't you do. But I think there's a packaging aspect that one can do for reviews to package it as a service that adds also value to a business owner. Similarly, compilations, we don't try and price very high for compilations because clients don't value it. But at the same time, there are compilations and compilations. Yeah, there's really badly done ones and a great quality one. And I think it's probably also around understanding your clients and what they want to do with that compilation and kind of digging into their need and saying, well, you can go down the road and get one for 2.5 or 3 grand, but that's not how we work. We've got a structured process that makes sure at the end of it, you're getting something that you're happy to give to your shareholders, to your bank, and the product that we deliver is quality. And that's why we charge what we charge, because there's a lot of quality built into that. And I think if you appeal to the client in that regard, you're more likely to get a slightly better price.
No, I need peace of mind in that case. I need confidence in terms of what I'm getting will give me peace of mind. So talking a little bit more about conversations with clients, have you seen an impact when talking about margins and also delivering clear packages in terms of how those conversations play out?
Greg, and you're talking about kind of our packages
Yeah.
and what we charge.
Yeah, we won't talk about your pricing, but
No. So I think most of the time when I've engaged with new clients, I've asked them what their previous accountants did. Asked them, do they have a clear scope of work? And I don't actually often ask what their price was, but I'll give you a trade secret that hopefully one or two of you already do. When I'm scoping out a client, most of the time I actually ask the client, why are you actually even coming to me? Clearly you're coming for a reason. What are those reasons? And you let them talk. And they normally say, oh, my previous accountant dropped the ball. I didn't know that I was non-compliant, and now I need a tax clearance, and my financials are, and they give you a long story. And basically they're giving you all the reasons why they want somebody that's going to not do that. And it's easy to then communicate to them, well, that's not us, first of all, and this is why we're not like that. And when it comes to kind of what we're able to deliver, I've got a PDF document that I've built out that clearly define the services, and it's not a bronze, silver, gold package. Yeah, I did a fair bit of research around should I offer a bronze, silver, gold package, and realized there were too many variables to try and box a bronze package versus a gold package and what should go in which. And what I mean by that is some clients value daily bookkeeping over tiniest management accounts. So everyone looks at the individual services slightly differently. So instead, I built out almost a checkbox and say, this is our standard list and these are our standard timelines. Which ones do you want to dial up or dial down on? And it's almost kind of like a menu then. And
Yes.
And based on that, it gives them a little bit more freedom to feel like they're not being boxed into bronze, silver, gold. I offer them a one price, not three, which once again, people go, but you should offer three, like three options. I'm not a fan of it. I like to rather offer add-ons, to say, well, this is what we're going to offer you. But if you'd like meetings, we can do monthly meetings for you at an additional as an additional option. We can offer you some maybe tax planning as an additional option. We can offer some CFO services as an additional option. So almost building out some additional options that people can add. And during the conversation, I talk through those and say, what do you want? And then I craft a price based on that. But that price is actually based on data. So I say, great, thanks for all of this. I've got an idea. Can you send me 6 months bank statements?
Yeah.
And your last set of financials. And if they're on zero, invite me to Zero as a Zero advisor, so I can do a health check on your Zero account. And the reason for that is, well, I can actually do a health check. Once again, we use Dext, and we pull data and do a health check, and it'll tell me how good or bad the information is. But I can also get a feel for kind of how much revenue, what their profitability, what their audit fees are, what their accounting fees are. So it gives me kind of an open book, literally, to what they look like. And then I look at volumes and complexity. And there's been a number that I've done like this, that the previous accountant's $5,000 a month. And I go, not a chance. This is supposed to be a 12.5 to 15, and I'll quote higher. And most of the time, the client actually doesn't mind the increased price. So
Yes.
I think there's a lot of value that we as accountants don't realize is left on the table, that we're actually pricing way lower than what clients are willing to accept. I compare it against, what is it going to cost for them to hire the equivalent internally? And the equivalent is kind of like a Swiss Army knife, because they're getting tax services, they're getting bookkeeping, they're getting financial management services, secretarial services. They're getting this blend of people, which they're never able to actually hire one person to do all those things. So I think it's really about drumming home the value offering, because they kind of know that there is value there. We just undersell ourselves most of the time.
Yes, and also confirming what is the value with the client, because they might see it and understand it, but really driving that home in terms of this is the value that we will deliver to you. On your point in terms of hiring internally, I mean, if you could hire one person and give them all of those tasks, but they're not going to be a specialist in all of those tasks, and balls will most likely be dropped. Now, talking about managing client expectations, what does a great client onboarding look like to you in terms of setting expectations? Now, I know we've spoken about scoping and catalog of services and stuff like that, but take us to sort of the starting point of how do you commence that onboarding?
Yeah, so I'll do it from what do we do. So once a client signs up with us, and we'll send a proposal through a tool called Ignition. Well, once they sign up, within 2 minutes, they get an email, because we've built an automated emailer welcoming them to the team. Welcoming them to our kind of community, and setting up what next steps look like. So we actually define, these are the things that are going to happen. This is the team that are going to onboard you, and they'll be in touch shortly. We've done a integration into Slack to notify our onboarding team that a new client has signed a proposal, and that they need to call that client as soon as possible. And the main purpose of the call is, hey, Greg, great to have you on board. Looking forward to working with you. I'll send you a separate email to unpack kind of next steps, and that's it. So what we're trying to do is give them multiple touch points, some automated and some individual human interactions, to very quickly reaffirm this was the right decision. And then we've got an onboarding team. We've built it out over the last while. It started off as kind of one person doing everything, and now we've built it out into a team of 5. We've got an onboarding manager or a customer success manager. We've got somebody that tackles project work. We've got somebody that tackles admin, so transferring SaaS types, making sure that any documentation that we need from a previous accountant, that they're handling that. We've got somebody that sets up their systems for them, and we've got somebody that does training. And none of those people are actually the accountants that engage with the clients on a monthly basis. So we realized if you set the expectations up right, get the information together, make sure the client's well trained, make sure there's some documentation around how the client works, their systems and processes. You have a couple of meetings to unpack the proposal that they signed, and what's involved and how it's going to work. And then we set up all our work tasks. And we use a tool called Carbon, and we've got standardized work tasks. And we set those all up, assign them to the account managers, and kind of once everything's ready, that onboarding task, which is a long task, gets signed off to say everything has been done, and it gets handed over to the execution team, who actually do the work on a monthly basis. We've also realized if there's any project work, we try and make sure that's scoped out during onboarding and separated.
Okay, we have another question. So is the engagement letter integrated into Approval Max, or is it customized?
It's pretty much it's not very customized, no.
Okay. And understood you're running that through Ignition as your underpinning technology to manage that process?
Yeah. So Ignition, basically, we set up all our templates in Ignition. To send out a proposal takes me less than 5 minutes. Normally, I can send it out in like 2 or 3. It's adding the client. I've got a templatized email, templatized proposal with all the services, and I maybe change the price, delete 1 or 2 of the services that are not applicable.
Yes.
Add the person's name, and fire off to them. So the quicker I can get out a proposal, the better, and the less I have to think about it, the better.
Fantastic. Now, I'd like to move on to scaling a practice. And first question for you is, how can a firm find the right people?
So I think it depends on the type of firm that you're running. We run a firm where we've got trainees that are doing SEMA training. Some of you might be running a SIPA or a SICA training office, and others might be running an office where you don't hire trainees. The trainee space is challenging. Finding talent is really hard. What we've done is we've gone to all the major universities, built up really strong relationships with them, and get to actually go and engage with those universities' classes directly, to try and find a way into to get them to know who we are. And I think if you're looking for students that are coming out, the more they know about you and why you're the right firm to deal with, the more likely they're going to sign up as part of your kind of funnel.
Yes.
But I think you need to have a really good structured hiring process. We do an interview up front with our HR person. We've added in a kind of an AI assessment into that mix. We then do a day at the office where they do a practical day where we've built out a almost like a fake client where we give them information and they need to process that information. They need to engage with some of our team members. They need to maybe write something about how provisional tax works. So they need to interact a lot and also deal with stuff that they've never dealt with before. And at the end of it, we get the people that interacted to rate that person on a number of things. Part of it is based on our values. Do they display our values? And the other was one big question that we ask is, would you want that person to be your junior next year? And they need to answer that, that person is going to be on their team under them next year, yes or no. And when you make it kind of personal, you're more likely to get a better answer to whether or not they should hire. Then we kick it on to director chats with Simon and I, where we chat to the person and we understand whether or not they're the right fit. And after that, we do a psychometric test.
Wow. Okay, so that is really comprehensive, and you're making sure that there's a fit on both sides, because I mean it's not just about you. There needs to be a fit from the person joining your team as well.
100%. So I think it's really critical. Every type of person that goes through our process follows a similar process. So if it's a manager, if it's somebody in the marketing team, if it's an admin person, they follow the same process. Their tests are just different.
Yes.
And I think that's probably getting that right is really critical. If you're not getting people coming in to your funnel, that's because you haven't built your brand well.
Yes. And in terms of firms that you've worked with and the structures that you've seen within firms, what have you often seen is missing in those firms from a structure point of view?
So I think there's often not enough emphasis, and I say this because, my title is sales and marketing, not a lot of emphasis on sales and marketing. They try and outsource it for the most part and not really own the function. And I think it's really important to, as business owners, to really have a good grasp on what you're trying to build as a business and how you're communicating. If you're not putting a lot of effort into your kind of sales and marketing, especially your marketing, you're probably not going to get a good funnel of work. You're probably not going to get a good funnel of people excited to come work for you. And you're, so it really is, it's critical. It's marketing's not necessarily going to rapidly change your sales from day 0 to 1, that suddenly you've got a big funnel, but it allows any person that engages with your with your company to feel better about their decision. If they jump on and you've got 3 people on kind of LinkedIn that have followed you, that you don't, as a business owner, haven't even paid attention to your profile. You've got no Facebook. You've got no presence. Your website looks like it's from the 90s. Then you're not going to get that person converting. So I think marketing is critical. And I think it's often overlooked. I think surprisingly, operations, you're actually building out standardized processes and reflecting on those regularly. Not just building something out and ignoring it, but building out and going, how can we do this better this year, next year? What are the tools out there that can elevate that space? That for me is critical. So I think ops and marketing.
Okay. And we have a question whether you have a designated HR function, and if you do, what was a trigger point or where this became necessary?
Yeah, good question. We do. We've got one person in our HR team. My brother's the head of HR. and he defers a lot of the grinds to our HR manager, or our head of people success, we call it.
Okay.
I think if I look, we hired around kind of between 15 and 20 people. And why was that at that point? Well, we realized we wanted to start scaling our hiring. And we realized a lot of it came down to us doing the grind of all the hiring process. And now it's just too much on us to own. We also knew we needed to build in performance management processes so that our team have a clear understanding of where they're at.
Yes.
So we do quarterly performance reviews. And
Good.
we had to do that entire function ourselves. It's challenging, but also it feels awkward that all the people are talking to the directors. So it's nicer that there's a barrier for our team to generally be able to talk to people, and for the performance management process to be slightly separated from us as directors. And then you can do so much more. Our kind of HR person, goes and engages with universities, engages with marketing to build out, fun things to do for the team, engages around training and development. There's a lot. Engages to deal with, make sure we're submitting any kind of documentation to kind of Department of Labor or CETA or whoever. So there's a lot that goes into that role.
And that frees you up to deliver value and obviously scale the business even further.
100%. It's a money well spent.
Definitely. And talking about tech, which also surfaced on the poll, in terms of what people would like us to discuss today. What tech really helps Iridium to deliver scalable services and value to your clients?
Yes, I mean, you've listed a number here. I think we've got our standard set of solutions that we offer everyone when they're on board, which is kind of Zero, Dext, Simple Pay, the three core items. We use Approval Max for a silly number of clients because we've realized that as they scale, this kind of approval process becomes more and more important.
Yes.
When I look at it, I kind of break it down into the various areas of business and the various processes. And our getting leads in, we use Pipedrive to manage a pipeline of leads. That's for us is a great tool to manage pipeline. Now, once I've got to the stage of kind of getting to a proposal, Ignition, we've been using it for years and we love it. It's quick to set up. Once it moves into kind of execution stage, you have to have a kind of a tool that manages all your tasks. And we found Carbon kind of connects into our email, which is Google or G Suite.
Okay.
And it manages everything. We pull reports from there where we're managing email and tasks through Carbon, and our whole team are using Carbon. And that's kind of like the hub for all work running through. And then I don't want to necessarily use Carbon for little chats. So we found Slack is critical. Some of you might use Teams and you love Teams, great, keep using it. But having a quick communication channel is critical, and especially separating out within there to different channels is really important. So the right people are dealing with those things. I love Zapier. If you haven't played around with it, please do. It allows us to connect tools that currently don't connect. So, that email that goes out straight after a proposal, that's because I've got a zap between Ignition and our tool called MailerLite that sends that email. The Slack fortunately has an integration now to Ignition. So any proposal goes and sends a Slack, which is really helpful. And yeah, to be honest, one that's not here is ChatGPT or Gemini or one of those, Claude. It's incredibly helpful, but I think it's also, myself and like our senior leadership are using it quite extensively to almost understand what we can get out of it. And I think it's important, if you're going to go down the AI route, to almost train your team on like what's allowed, what's not allowed, and what's covered through a paid version versus an unpaid version. And so I'm not going to go into the legalities of that. I use the paid version. I love it. I use it all the time to speed up processes and to do some like coding on the side. So I think for me, having a good grasp of the tech out there is important. And if you're not sure, there's lots of guys out there that are willing to chat. I'm willing to chat to you about your tech stack. Now we've just introduced a couple of tax tools into our business. One built by an accounting firm in South Africa called B Sharp, and they understood the pain points that accountants had, and built something that's useful for us.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So we're going to quickly launch another quick poll in terms of which tools and apps have been most helpful to our audience's practices. So that should be coming up on your screen now. So just moving on to our last topic, I want to just close out with assessing and evolving your practice. If a firm feels overwhelmed, where's the best place to start making changes?
Great question. I think the starting point, to be honest, is almost, I do this regularly, is doing a bit of a calendar time audit of where is your time being spent. And I book a lot in my calendar, so it allows me to understand what I'm doing. And for me, then I'm able to look back each week and go, where did I spend my time? And by doing that, I'm able to go, well, was that a healthy use of my time or not? One thing off the bat that one of the firms that I've worked with was doing was they didn't trust their team enough, so they were being CC'd into every email with clients.
Wow.
So I think if your inbox is predominantly client interactions and you are one of the more senior people in your team, you're doing something wrong, because those communications should be with your team.
Yes.
I think freeing up your inbox to what you should be doing regularly, be it sales or finance or whatever that is in the business, allows you to hyper focus in that space. We fired a bunch of clients.
Good.
We fire clients regularly, and we do kind of audits on our client list. The fee that we charge, let's say it's 10 or 15 or 5. I use Dext. Once again, they've got a health tool. It allows you to analyze across every single company. Sift has a similar functionality. Every single company, what are the volumes of transactions flowing through those? And then I pull up my pricing and I go, for similar clients with similar volumes, what am I charging? And I think if you're a business owner and you're not looking at volumes and time pricing regularly, you've probably got a bunch of things in your portfolio that are well underpriced, and your team are sinking far too much time into it
Yes.
that you actually need to exit. And you need to feel comfortable as a business owner to get rid of a client or to significantly increase their price and be okay that the client says no. And I think a lot of us are scared of that. And some business owners say, but they've been with us for 10 years. That's great. If you're underpricing them and overworking, it's a problem that you need to solve.
Yeah, agreed. So our poll results just came in, and at the top of the list is Approval Max and Zapier, which I'm very happy to see. And second is practice management tools such as Carbon and Pixie. We also had a follow-up question about the use of Ignition, which we covered again. So that's used to send out the proposals and the scope. So just before we close out, what metrics or signs do you use to gauge whether a firm is healthy or not?
So I think we're a business that we love recurring revenue. And I think, maybe I didn't mention that, but we sign up clients on a recurring revenue basis. So they sign a proposal that's a fixed retainer every month for the bundle of services. And for me, if you're billing ad hoc, that's not a great business. So because to be honest, it's hard to plan your cash flow. It's hard to plan a lot if you don't know when money is going to come in. So I think for me, a big thing is, what is your, how are you billing? And how large is your recurring revenue base? How have you, and then it comes down to, how are you managing your expenses? We love to look at within our team, what's the kind of ratio between an accountant and their billing and their salary. So if and we've done it based on, we allocate clients to accountants. So not everyone's the same, but there should be a ratio that makes you happy. So we tend to find if you're somewhere between kind of 2.5 and 4, I'm happy. If it's below that, I'm starting to get worried. If it's below 2, I'm doing really badly. So we religiously track across every single one of our team members. What is their revenue per team member, and what are the ratios that we're getting out of them, and then what are then we've got it kind of per team, because we break them down into little teams. How they're performing. Yes. So that for me is quite critical, and it's that revenue side, the kind of salaries, because salaries is one of your biggest costs, and then it's kind of like your cash. If you're not collecting from customers, that's going to shut your business down. So we put our clients on debit order. We're not, and if they're not willing to sign a debit order, well, that's a problem we solve up front when we're taking them on board. And we cut services if they're not willing to pay. And I think if you're religious around managing your debtors and managing that expectation of I do services, therefore you need to pay, and you have those tough conversations, you'll have a healthier practice. And obviously, if you don't have any profit at the bottom line, that's a problem. And then personally, I want to make sure that every year I'm able to be happy that my salary can go up every year, and that I feel like it's relatable in the market, because there's a lot of business owners out there that are chartered accountants that are paying themselves numbers that their article trainees got, or somebody 1 or 2 years outside of articles is willing to get in the market, yet their workload and their stress levels are significantly higher. So I think it is important to, as a business owner, know kind of what your salary should be based on kind of your experience and your and make sure your business is able to generate that.
Fantastic. Thank you, Peter. So we are a little bit over time already, so we are going to wrap up. I would like to urge everyone, if you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to send them through an email. We will get back to you, and we will be sharing the document as promised in terms of the checklist about how to start assessing your firm and to move forward. Peter, thank you again for today. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure everybody appreciates all of your thoughts and insights, and for making it so relevant to the day-to-day experience that people have within firms, and also for sharing your journey. I mean, it's been a couple of years for Iridium, and everybody keeps their eyes on, what is Iridium doing and what are they doing next, because you have defined a very specific space in the market, not just from a services point of view, but also from a culture point of view with your team. Um, any last thoughts or closing remarks from your side, Peter?
Yeah, I think to the point of talent earlier, yeah, we're all building a business that's heavily reliant on people, and I think if you're sitting around not treating your people well, not looking after them, not investing them, and not understanding where they're at and their specific needs, you're going to fall short. So I think if you're genuinely building a business that people can that are excited about you as a business owner, relate to you, and they feel valued, it goes a really long way. And so, yeah, something silly that I read that somebody did as a business owner, every day they went and tried to make a concerted effort to walk around and say hi to people.
Yes.
And I'm not saying I do it every day, but I definitely have taken that as a mental note, and I like to actually walk around and actually just say hi to people, and to understand how their day was, or understand are they looking forward to the weekend, or just silly conversation, those water cooler conversations that breaks the ice for somebody that's either a first year or somebody who's been around for a while. I think by doing that, you're able to actually build a culture that people want to be part of,
Yes.
and that's not just stuff on the wall that you say, but it actually is something that people can see.
And it's lived in your firm.
Yeah,
Okay, great. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, everybody, for joining
it's
today.
great. Cheers,
Really,
everyone. Thanks so much.
cheers. Keep well.